In 1998, Paulo Cesar Chavez made Mexico's preliminary squad for the World Cup in France. He had 30 caps. He had the respect of the program. He was one of 24 names on that list. Then coach Manuel Lapuente made his final cut, 22 players. Chavez was not among them. He described being left out as the greatest pain of his entire career. He never reached another World Cup. 28 years later, June 24th, 2026, Mexico City, the Azteca. Mexico is co-hosting its third World Cup, and a 22-year-old left back takes the field against the Czech Republic. His name is Mateo Chávez, son of Paulo Cesar, son of the man they call Tilón. Born in 2004, developed in the Chivas youth system, and now playing club football in the Dutch Eredivisie.
He'd played 10 games for Mexico before this moment, 0 goals. In the 55th minute, he opens the scoring. Composed finish. Mexico wins 3-0. First World Cup appearance, first international goal, man of the match. The wound his father carried for almost 3 decades was in just 55 minutes finally closed. Welcome to Footy Leo, the channel that finds the stories inside the story. And this one starts not with Mateo, but with his father. Paulo Cesar Chavez grew up in Atemajac, a neighborhood in Guadalajara with football in its DNA. He was 9 years old when Chivas scouts spotted him at a local match and brought him into the academy. That was 1985. He spent the next decade inside that system, learning what it meant to wear the red and white. He debuted for the first team in December 1993 at just 17 in a 2-0 win over Puebla. He wore number 50. From that night on, he started every single game. Chivas called him Tilón. He was a midfielder known for precise passing, quick decision-making, and the kind of reliability coaches build teams around. He wasn't a headline player. He was the kind of player managers trusted when the moment mattered most. In the summer of 1997, that trust paid off. Chivas reached the league final. Tilón scored the goal in the semifinal that sent them through. They went on to win the championship in one of the defining moments of his career.
By the late 1990s, he had become a regular with the Mexican national team. 30 international caps, consistent call-ups, a player the program counted on. As Mexico prepared for the 1998 World Cup in France, coach Manuel Lapuente was assembling his squad. Tilón made the preliminary list of 24 players. A World Cup suddenly felt within reach. It felt close enough to touch. The final squad for France would carry only 22 players. Tilón was one of the 24 on the preliminary list. 2 names would be removed. His was one of them. Coach Manuel Lapuente made the decision. Paulo Cesar Chavez and David Oteo were left behind. No explanation changed anything. No appeal mattered. The flight to France left without him. Years later, Tilón called it the greatest pain of his entire career. Not a bad season, not a bad match, not an injury. Just being that close and never getting there. Mexico went to France without him. They reached the round of 16 before losing 2-1 to Germany. The tournament ended. The players came home. Tilón returned to club football. He stayed involved with the national team and represented Mexico at the Copa America the following year. But the World Cup only comes every 4 years. In football, that's a lifetime. 2002 came and he wasn't selected. Then 2006 passed the same way. Eventually, the door closes, and you stop waiting for it to open again.
He retired in 2012 after 19 years as a professional. A league title, 30 caps for his country, a career most players would proudly accept. But the cut from France in 1998 never truly disappeared. Some absences stay with you, not because they define who you were, but because they represent what you never had the chance to become. Mateo Chávez Garcia was born on May 11, 2004 in Monterrey. His father was still playing professionally, so football wasn't just a dream in the house, it was a career, a discipline, and part of everyday life. Mateo knew everything his father had achieved. He also knew the one dream that had slipped away. He eventually joined the Chivas Youth Academy, the same club, the same system that had shaped Tilón since childhood. It almost felt like the next chapter of the same story. Mateo developed as a left back, a different position, but the same badge, the same colors, and the same expectations that came with wearing them. On January 13th, 2024, Mateo Chávez made his professional debut for Chivas. He wore number 50. The exact same number his father had worn on his own debut 31 years earlier. It wasn't an accident. It was a quiet tribute, one that needed no explanation for the people who understood what that number meant. Mateo was 19. His father had been 17. A generation separated them, but the connection remained unbroken. After establishing himself with Chivas, Mateo moved to AZ Alkmaar in 2025. The Dutch club, known for developing young talent, gave him the opportunity to grow at a higher level. The son of Tilon was now following his own path. Mateo received his first senior call-up from Mexico in 2025. He was just 20 years old. Consistent performances in the Eredivisie had caught the attention of head coach Javier Aguirre. A composed left back, comfortable on the ball, technically gifted. The kind of young defender who already looked calm under pressure.
He collected appearances, 10 caps before the 2026 World Cup. He became part of the national team's plans. But there was still one thing missing. He had never scored for Mexico. Then, the World Cup squad for 2026 was announced. Mexico would host the tournament alongside the United States and Canada. Matches at the Azteca, home crowds. For any Mexican player, there is no bigger stage. For the son of a man who had been cut from a World Cup squad, there was no heavier meaning. When Mateo's name appeared on the list, Tilon couldn't hold back his emotions. He cried. In every interview, the pride, the relief, and nearly 3 decades of emotion came pouring out. His son was going to the World Cup in Mexico at the Azteca, the place Tilon had once dreamed of reaching. Mateo entered the tournament with 0 international goals. His father had never even reached this stage. Both of those things were about to change on the very same night. June 24, 2026, Estadio Azteca, Mexico City. Mexico had already secured first place in the group before kickoff. The match against the Czech Republic carried little mathematical importance. But football doesn't always follow mathematics. Not at the Azteca. Not when your father is watching. Mateo Chávez started at left back. The stadium was alive with noise, color, and the unmistakable energy that fills the Azteca whenever Mexico takes the field. The first half ended scoreless. Mexico controlled possession but couldn't find the breakthrough. Then came the 55th minute. Mateo Chávez receives the ball, moves into space, and finishes with complete composure. Simple on the surface, much harder in reality. The Azteca exploded. He had played 10 matches for Mexico without scoring once. He chose his first World Cup on the biggest stage possible to score his very first international goal. In the tournament, his father never got to play. Mexico went on to win 3-0. Julián Quiñones scored the second. Álvaro Fidalgo added the third in stoppage time. 3 wins, 3 clean sheets, the best group stage in Mexico's World Cup history. Mateo Chávez was named man of the match. He left the field in the 77th minute to a standing ovation as Jesus Gallardo replaced him. Somewhere in that stadium, a father had just witnessed the ending to a story that had waited 28 years. There's a version of this story that's only about football. A young left back scored on his World Cup debut. His team won. He was named man of the match. But that's not really the story. The real story is about a man who spent 19 years as a professional and never reached the World Cup. Not because he lacked talent, but because he came painfully close. It's about a son who grew up knowing that history, who joined the same club, wore the same number, and finally reached the place his father never could. Football doesn't always give us endings like this. Dreams are often left unfinished. Careers end with unanswered questions. But sometimes, the next generation carries the story forward. Mateo Chávez is only 22. He's already scored on his World Cup debut, already won man of the match, and already helped Mexico produce its greatest group stage performance ever. He's
only getting started. Whatever Tilon felt as that goal crossed the line is almost impossible to describe. It took 28 years to arrive, and only one finish from his son to erase the pain. If you're new here, this is what Footy Leo is all about. We uncover the stories hidden beneath the scoreline. Subscribe if you love football stories like this, and tell us in the comments which World Cup story we should cover next. In 1998, Manuel Lapuente took 22 players to France. Paulo Cesar Chavez wasn't one of them. He returned to club football and quietly carried that disappointment for the rest of his career.
28 years is a long time to carry something that heavy. But those 28 years also produced something extraordinary. A son who grew up inside that story, who understood the meaning of number 50 before he ever wore it. A son who reached AZ Alkmaar, earned his place under Javier Aguirre, stepped onto the Azteca pitch, and made history in the 55th minute. The greatest pain of his father's career
Closed by one composed finish from his own son. Football rarely offers endings this perfect. Most stories are about missed chances, squads that leave you behind, and tournaments you can only watch from afar. But every now and then, football gives us something unforgettable. If this story meant something to you, send it to someone who still believes football is only about results. We'll be back soon with another World Cup story worth telling.